Hello and welcome to The Success Rate. I'm Thuli Magubane, your host. Today we are joined by an esteemed guest, Pastor Ituah Ighodalo. He is all the way from Nigeria visiting South Africa. He is a pastor, he's a businessman, he's also an accountant. Started his company Ighodalo CO in 1987. So he's been around the block. He knows a thing or two. He's also the pastor of Trinity House, which is based in Lagos, Nigeria. And he's currently a partner at SIO, which is a professional services firm of accountants and management consultants. Welcome, sir. Great to have you.
Thank you, Julian. That was very nice.
The sex looks good on you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I
very
should
much.
say belated happy birthday. I believe you celebrated your birthday just about a week ago.
Exactly. Today's Saturday.
Yes.
Yeah, just a week ago.
Yes.
Exactly a week ago.
Well, still your birthday month. Happy birthday.
Thank you so
And
much.
may God richly bless you.
Amen.
Just to start us off, if you had a superpower, would you choose to be invisible or to be able to read people's minds?
Read people's minds.
Okay, why?
Because the mind is powerful.
Uh-huh.
And when you know what's going on in the mind,
Yes.
then you know how to deal with what's going on in the mind and how to cope with the mind.
Yes.
Everything starts from the mind.
Yeah.
If you're invisible, they wouldn't see you, but you wouldn't hear them.
Yeah.
What you want to do is to hear them.
Okay. All right. So you started your professional life as an accountant. So growing up, I presume in Lagos, what inspired you to follow that career track?
To be honest, and this is an honest confession,
Yes.
I really didn't want to be an accountant.
Really?
No. I wanted to be a businessman.
Okay.
I wanted to make money like you.
Yes, yeah.
When I was about 13, parents ask you that question, what do you want to be?
Yes.
And my father asked me that question. And I said, I just want to make money. I want to be a businessman. Then he says, well, that's okay, but get a profession.
Yes.
It's good to be a profession. It's good to run your own race, determine your own boundaries. I think it's the best piece of advice I ever got. So he says, become an accountant. He was an accountant. I think he also wanted one of his sons to be an accountant.
To follow in his
to
footsteps.
follow in his footsteps.
Yes.
He loved accounting, my father. So I said, okay, I'll be an accountant, and then I'll do business. So that is how I went into accounting. I read economics and accounting as my first degree at the University of Hull. And when I came back, I started work with Pricewaterhouse.
I see.
It's now called PricewaterhouseCoopers
Yes,
in
yeah.
Lagos. So I went to university in England, came back to Lagos and worked with PricewaterhouseCoopers. And that's why I did my accounting training. After a few years, I decided to start business, not really accounting practice.
Yes.
So I went into business with a friend. It didn't quite work out. We fell out over certain things. Then I suddenly remembered that I was an accountant. So I went back to my accounting practice.
So your father's advice to have a profession came in handy.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
That's why I said it's probably the best piece of advice I ever got.
Yes,
Because when the business failed, I then said, well, I can run my own business as an accountant.
Yes.
So I went back to running accounting as a business. That started in 1987, and we grew until we were about 100 people, maybe a bit more. And in 2004, we decided to merge with two other firms to form SIAO.
Yes.
The reason was that accounting is a very traditional profession, and we simply could not really compete with the PwCs, the KPMGs, the Deloittes, because they had such a rich history, such credibility, such a background, that the really big assignments went to them. And some of our customers used to say to us, why don't you merge? Why don't you
So you create a credible and sizable firm, yes.
create a bigger firm that can compete with these people? And that's how SIO came about. A friend of mine who also was an accountant having his own firm, Robert. I think he was having the same challenges.
Yes, yeah.
And then he approached me and said, why don't we come together and create this big firm that people have been asking about? So we came together, created the big firm, and it worked. We became like the 5th largest firm in Nigeria,
yeah.
right there below the big four.
Yes.
You know, so now when you really can't find the big four, you come to the SIO. And it's worked. We've got some big government assignments. We've got some big private assignments. We work for some of the biggest firms and biggest companies in Nigeria.
Yes.
And sometimes we share work, even with the big four now, in that if they do a part of the assignment, we do another part of the assignment. So
you mentioned that initially when you started business, you had a partner and you had a fallout. So what lessons did you take from that experience to make sure that the new partnership you went into was successful?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. The reason why we had a fallout, my first partner and I, had really nothing to do with the business. It were soft issues,
I see.
Social issues, and so on and so forth.
I suppose values are important
Yeah.
in partnership. You have to have the same values with your partners.
Very, very important. By the time we went into this next set of partnerships, we had all matured. We had all been around the block. We had all made our mistakes. And the first thing is that we determined that this partnership would work.
Yeah.
The second thing was to take each other's strengths and weaknesses into consideration. The third was to have very clear working terms,
Yes.
and so on and so forth. And it's worked for us in that we've all worked very well. We've all tried to build the firm. The vision is that the firm wanted to build an institution.
True. Yes.
Now it wasn't about us making personal money. Okay, we wanted to build an institution. So we focused on building an institution and making the sacrifices to build an institution.
That's great. So we talk about success on our podcast. So start us off with your definition of success. What is success to you? Yeah.
And my simple definition of success is fulfilling God's purpose for your life. Fulfilling God's purpose for your life.
Yeah.
You may not even have the materiality to show for it, but you would have the satisfaction and the impact to deliver for it.
Yes.
And it will make the right kind of impact in the right kind of way for the right kind of people, for the maximum number of people. And that really is success. You know, that's why some people don't stop. They don't stop because their definition of success is not quite right. They think that the more you have, the more successful you are. So they keep acquiring more. And they acquire more not for any person's benefit, but for their own benefit and for their egos. And the ego keeps growing.
And the ego, the more you feed it, the bigger it gets.
The bigger it gets. So they're not successful.
Yeah.
They're dissatisfied. They're discontent. But if you are able to fulfill purpose, then you're extremely successful.
Yes. And in your journey to success, is there an individual or individuals that were very instrumental in either giving you a break or getting you started on a certain path?
Not really. There's not one individual. There have been people who've played different roles at different times.
Yes.
Without them even knowing that they were playing that role. Again, so when you have that kind of success, nobody can really take the credit. At the end of the day,
Yes.
the Almighty would take the credit. But like I've said, my father gave me a simple piece of advice. Get a profession. Be the master of your own career. I will never forget that. Along the line, a comment would give me some kind of inspiration and answer some questions. You know, I'll tell you a story. I was frustrated one day. I was going to look for business with a friend. I got to my friend's place of business. He kept me waiting.
Yes.
I was getting irritated. I saw another friend who I thought wasn't practicing Christianity effectively. So I wanted to go and evangelize. And the Spirit kept telling me, go and evangelize to this man. My heart kept telling me, you are not so successful yourself. You are frustrated. You are tired. You are angry with God. So what's the point? But there was this argument in my heart. Eventually, I decided to go and talk to the guy and started telling him about Jesus and God. And he looked at me and said to me, I don't know what you're saying, but all I know is that God will never let me down.
Yes.
He was talking about himself. I was trying to give him the usual lay of the land. You're a sinner, give your life to Jesus. He says, yeah, I might be a sinner, I might be on this and that, but all I know is that God will never let me down.
Yeah.
Guess what my sermon was the next Sunday?
God will never let me down.
God will never let me down. He spoke to me.
Yes, yeah.
Because here I was grumbling and complaining that this God is not being fair. And then this is a person who should ordinarily not know as much about God as I should, telling me that I don't know what you're saying, but God will never let me down. So inspirations like that in little buckets. That gentleman never knew until a couple of weeks ago what he said.
And how it spoke to you.
Yeah, he never knew. Because a couple of weeks ago, he needed my help. And I was happy to help him. And then I explained to him that many years ago, you said something that seemed, you just said it from the heart, but it was God speaking to me. So I've had occasions like that where at various times I've been able to get the kind of support and backing that I needed here and there.
So, I mean, you're a businessman, you're a partner at a professional services firm. At what point did you realize that you also have a calling and that you should be a minister of the gospel?
It wasn't deliberate.
Yeah.
It seemed like an accident. And sometimes God creates situations that lead you in a certain direction once you're willing to yield. As I said, I was struggling. I was working very hard, and I didn't think I had the commensurate results for my effort. Again, my estimation of success was fiscal acquisition, and I didn't have that. But I was influencing a lot of lives, and I didn't realize it. But so I got a bit frustrated, and I decided one day, well, it was my mother again that came to visit me and looked at me and said, with the way you are going to burn up or burn out or get into depression. Why don't you try Jesus? You know, and I said, Jesus? I said, what has he got to do with?
With anything, yes.
She says, no, try Jesus. Pray. I mean, commit it to God. Give your life to Jesus. And all I knew was that she led me through a series of prayers, which affected my emotional being. I calmed down. I was able to focus. And then I said that, well, I've tried many things. Why don't I try Jesus? So I got involved in Jesus, got into a church. And in the church, the Redeemed Christian Church of God, I started to grow very quickly. And before I knew it, they thrust on me pastoral responsibility. And that's how I became a pastor. It wasn't by design. It was by demand and the conditions of my life.
And so how do you balance the two, running a firm and also a church?
Well, what you have is time. And what you do is allocate time to each thing. Some people are single-faced and single-focused. Some people are multi-talented. I think I'm one of the multi-talented ones. And the principles are the same. In running a church, you minister to people. In running a business, you minister to businesses. But the principles are the same. You look after the business. You speak to the business, you help the business, you encourage the business, you study so that you can encourage the business. So I do both with the same sort of skills. I just give each its time. But now, as I grow older, I'm doing less and less professional work. It's time to hand over to another generation. So we're actually doing that in my firm. We're building up another generation. I used to be managing partner. I retired from that last year. Created another managing partner. I've moved up to the board, guiding them. So I'm focused more on leadership, political activity in my country, and also my spiritual work.
That's great. So succession obviously is an important element, as you said, in your firm. So how do you identify someone that you feel is got the right personality, characteristics, and even just the leadership qualities to take over from you? Because I believe if you're successful, succession is something that should come naturally.
Succession is important, but sometimes succession doesn't come naturally, especially in Africa,
Yeah.
where you don't get third, fourth, fifth generation organizations, because the successful man sometimes doesn't define his success and doesn't prepare for sustainability and succession.
Yes.
So after he's gone, he has not created the environment for continuity. But we've been deliberate about that, and even in the church that I pastor,
Yes.
I'm being very deliberate about that also. The first is to identify your people type at the door before they come in. Okay, because by the time they come in and they're the wrong type, they're like Jonas.
Yes,
They
yeah.
will create a lot of confusion. So at the door, my brother Aswe did this very effectively in his law firm. He's also built a fantastic law firm, probably the number one in Nigeria. At the door, you recognize the kind of people you want, mainly in terms of attitude and in terms of background and
Yeah.
in terms of character. You can teach and train skill if they're willing. So, but you need the right type of
The
character
yes.
to create the right type of culture. So, in bringing somebody in, you look for the character
Yeah.
as they come in. Once the character is right and the interest is there, then training will give you the kind of skill, and hopefully passion will keep them motivated. The mistake some people also make is that sometimes they want to look for their own type. You are only one of you. You don't want to look for your own type. Sometimes you have to divide the work between 4 people. So when Moses was leaving, he divided the work between Caleb, Joshua, and a few others.
Yes,
He
yeah.
didn't. There couldn't be another Moses, but you can create a situation where 3, 4 people can combine to do what Moses did. So that's what we're doing. We're creating a conglomerate, a corporation, a multi-level leadership, first amongst equals,
Yeah.
and bringing in all the pieces that we need to do to make it work. So we've gotten somebody we think is a stable managing partner. We've also pulled up 1 or 2 people to surround him
Yes,
and
yeah.
get them to work together,
I see.
and hope that we can create that as a culture going forward.
Okay. All right. So we've got a feature called the Fire Five. And the Fire Five is just a fun segment. We'll ask you some questions, 5 fun questions. So the first answer that comes to mind is what you should give us. So don't spend too much time thinking about this. So first one is your holiday destination. Would you choose seaside or mountainside?
Seaside.
Okay. What was your nickname when you were growing up?
A few of them, but one I remember very well is Brewster.
Brewster.
Yes.
Okay, were you a Bruce Lee fan?
Brewster, there was a movie called Brewster's Millions many, many years ago. And when I started off wanting to make money, and I made money, my brother started calling me Brewster. Till today he calls me Brewster.
Okay. Your favorite cologne?
I can't remember the name, to be honest, but I like it very much. It's a small cologne. Christian something.
Christian something.
Something Christian something.
Okay. All right. So imagine if you could create a time capsule. So you're able to put 3 items in a tin box that would be buried, only to be discovered by a future generation. And in that box, you need to put 3 items that represent the current generation. What would you put?
A Bible, a laptop, and a phone.
And a phone. Okay. And are you a tea or coffee person?
More tea.
A tea person. Okay. Hi, I'm Thuli Magubane, the host of The Success Rate. Just want to remind you to please subscribe, hit the notification button, and don't forget to share, because we're trying to grow our channel. We want more people to hear about these wonderful stories of success. All right, that was our 5-5. So moving on, how do you deal with disappointment and rejection in business?
That's a very good question. It's like you're looking into my mind. I used to be
Maybe I have the superpower of reading minds.
I used to be very, very upset with rejection
Yes.
and disappointment. I guess most people are. When I first started business, if a staff left, I felt that I had failed.
You took it personally.
I took it a little bit personally. Not that I was angry with them.
Yes.
I was more disappointed with myself and saying, where did I go wrong? Because I wanted to picture myself as the ideal boss.
Yes.
Disciplined, compassionate, interested in their development. In those days, I used to even visit them in their homes and put a lot into it. If I lost a client, and thankfully I didn't lose too many,
Yes,
I felt that I had failed them for one reason or the other. So in fact, one of the clients I lost, an airline that I was developing, I lost because they needed to go to a Big Four, and that gave me a lot of pain. But I then learned that life moves in times and seasons, and people will move on, people will go, and people will go on to something else. So I said to turn it around and make something positive out of it. So if you're a staff, you're leaving, I turn you to an ambassador. You go there and represent me. You love me, I love you. Give me business, we don't quarrel. And I wish you well, and we keep our relationship. I just change the relationship, but keep the relationship. Same thing with the client. If you are moving on to something else or someone else, how else can I help you? What else can we do together? Recommend me to somebody else, and so on and so forth. So I change everything into something positive. I learned that from learning about God and knowing about God.
And I think one thing that we don't do enough of, especially us as Africans, is building legacy businesses and leaving a legacy. And I believe with SIO, you are doing that. So what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs out there about building legacy businesses?
Number one, let your vision be very clear, what you want to achieve and what you want to leave behind. And you must leave something behind. Number two, look for the right kind of teachings or learnings or strategies that will help you build that legacy business. Number three, don't be selfish. Be very, very open and be ready to encourage others. Be ready to share. Number four, don't be afraid to let go. Don't be afraid to allow other people to make mistakes.
True.
Be on hand to help and to correct the mistakes. But don't be afraid to allow people to make mistakes. You know, and begin to change your feeling of ownership. This is mine, mine, mine. This is ours, and it's for everyone's benefit. Once you can deal with your mind and your attitude, God will help you build the legacy that you want.
And I guess, as you said, you've been around the block. And when it comes to success, what are some parting shots that you can share with our audience?
Everyone is designed to be successful at every level of your life. You know, Joseph was successful at levels. Even as a kid, he was successful. In the pit, he was successful. In Potiphar's house, he was successful. In the prison, he was successful. People would think that you can't be successful in the prison, but he was one of the greatest prisoners that ever was. So everyone can be successful. So you must have it in your mind that success is not for some, it's for everyone. Number two, you must find your own area of success. You know, everyone's area of success is different, and that's why he's created us differently. Some people play soccer, some are pilots, some are soldiers, some do needlework. They can be very successful needlework people. So don't compare yourself to others. Find your own niche, find your own area, And then number three, you work hard at success. It requires discipline. It requires waking up early. It requires long nights. It requires study. It requires inspiration, and so on and so forth. And then number four, do what you're passionate about. Passion makes it easier to do things. Don't force yourself to do what you don't like.
Yeah.
And number 5, pray. Pray and pray again, and you'll be successful.
And you can never pray too much.
You can never pray. Pray. Some people say, I've prayed and prayed and prayed, nothing happened. I say, pray until it happens. It means that you have not prayed enough. Just keep praying. Keep praying, keep praying, keep praying, keep praying, keep praying. And if it doesn't happen before you die, it will happen after you're dead. If you keep praying, the prayer will get answered one day.
Yes. Okay. And the next chapter, I mean, you mentioned that you're no longer the managing partner, you're on the board, but what are some other plans that you have for this next chapter in your life?
Well, as I said, now I am deputy chairman of the firm. So very soon I'll just be on the board and be watching and hopefully receiving my dividends. I am passionate about Africa.
Yes.
I'm passionate about Nigeria, where I come from. I'm passionate about transformational leadership. I'm passionate about creating leaders. I'm passionate about a big, beautiful Africa. So I have something we call the African Leadership Group.
Okay.
Which we intend to have in all spots of Africa. So the African Leadership Group is designed to evolve great leadership in Africa. I look at Africa, I look at our potential, I look at our competence, our capabilities, and it gives me a lot of pain that in most parts of Africa, even South Africa inclusive, we're not quite where we should be. And I have been researching this, thinking about it, and therefore the African Leadership Group is directed to encourage great leadership in Africa. Of course, starting with Nigeria, where I live and where I know most of, and it's in 3 parts or 4 parts. Number 1, conversations with people, with Africans. Finding out how they're thinking, what they're thinking, how they feel, what they think is right or wrong for Africa, and so on and so forth. And we may bring you on that conversation. We get ideas from everybody, young people, old people, big people. And with that, we sow a seed and create an idea in their hearts that how can Africa be great and really great. The second is information and education. What really is the problem with the African is the level of awareness, the level of literacy, the level of information, the level of exposure, the level of self-confidence in themselves, and knowing right from wrong. If you ask an average African in the village or in the rural area, why do you choose that leader? They don't really, they can't tell you. They've been instructed. They've been bribed. They've been given money. They've been told by somebody who they think is superior to them to do this. So everybody needs to upgrade and be able to think and take leadership decisions. The third is to compel or inspire our present crop of leaders to do better. To do better. They've been extremely selfish, very greedy, very, very uncaring about the people and thinking more of themselves. Again, this happens. It happened in Europe. It happened all over the world. It happens in times and seasons, and it continues to happen. I mean, Europe, the monarchy was terrible. In France, in England, in Belgium, everywhere, the monarchy oppressed the people, kept the people under, until you had various revolutions, even in Russia. It never happened in America, because by the time people got to America, they knew exactly what they wanted and they created their own leadership, and they called it God's own country, and they trusted in God. But Europe took 1,500, 1,600 years to evolve into the first world that we see it. So if Africa is evolving slower, that's okay, but it's awareness that changes people. That's why the Bible says be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So that's the third anchor, to compel the present leadership to think differently and to give the people much more than they're giving the people at this point in time. And then compel over time a change in leadership, in that once a crop goes, you look for a better crop
of leaders,
Another crop goes, look for a better crop until you get the ideal crop. That's what's happened in Rwanda right now. That's what happened in Singapore. They just got the right kind of crop of leaders. to change the area. And then once you can do that, you begin to walk the walk, and you begin to keep it going. And over time and season, with these little things, I do believe that Africa will change. What has happened is that most of us want the other person to do the work.
And not do the work themselves.
And we want to do the work ourselves. But if each person knows what to do and does what they should do, bit by bit, Africa will change. I'm very, very pleased with Africa. I think we have great potential. I think God blessed us specially, even better than Europe or any other part of the world. All we need to do is to harness that blessing by the right kind of thinking.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Sounds like an exciting chapter you're moving into, becoming one of the elders in our continent and driving good leadership. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you and getting to know you a little bit better and your journey to success.
Thank you for inviting me. I think you're also going to be an inspiration, and I think you're going to be one of the tools that will help Africans think differently in terms of defining success and looking towards success. I wish you the very best.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So if you've enjoyed today's conversation with Pastor Ighodalo, please make sure that you comment. We want to hear about your views on today's interview. Don't forget to click the notification button so you know when new episodes are loaded. And of course, you've got to subscribe and share today's interview. Share it with your friends and family so that we can make the circle bigger.